This is beefhouse.com.
Top 5 key things to watch in Week 12. These are things that could affect the playoff or just kind of maybe interesting scenarios. Number 5, can Tennessee do anything against Georgia? Georgia has turned it on. Like their early season woes are well behind them. Tennessee looked like they were a team that could at least, bump heads with everybody, but after that debacle against Mizzou last week where Mizzou just ran right through them, Mizzou's really good and gave Georgia all they wanted a couple weeks ago. I just don't see Tennessee being the team that if you're hoping for Georgia's win streak to end, I don't think it comes at the hands of the Vols.
Yeah, I don't either. I think Georgia's the best team pound for pound in the country right now, and Tennessee obviously been an up and down season for them, but not banking on even being at home this to be a game that goes in their favor in the long run. I think they keep it close early, but I think Georgia's just too good.
Yeah, they've been okay, Tennessee, but Georgia seems like they're just kind of like they're just prepping. They're like getting ready for a marathon, and they're running a little bit longer every weekend, getting better and better. And I think they might maul Tennessee.
Number 4, will Oregon State knock UW out of playoff contention? I don't know. I mean, like, they can, if they, like, and that's my other question is, will they, say it's a close game and Washington takes a loss and then beats Oregon again in the conference title game? Was that put Washington back in, or do they get in the same mess that Texas and Alabama are going to be in? I'm very curious about that, but this is every game is the biggest game of the season when you're trying to make the playoff, obviously, but this one is so interesting and so the ramifications of it have more than just one tentacle to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a huge game, massive game for both teams, and Washington in particular as far as the playoff hopes go, but huge fan experience, and I would expect dramatic backdrop and just big stakes attached to this one in Corvallis. So, I think the Beavers will be ready. They play better at home. You say that with every team, but like they know they really are like way better at home than they are on the road. So there was certainly a lot of talk about an upset potential earlier in the week, and I don't think that subsided much at all. So will they? That's obviously what we're watching for tomorrow. But there's as good of a chance as any for them to do so.
Who's better? Resume. 1 loss Texas, 1 loss Alabama. We know the head-to-head. 1 loss Oregon, or 1 loss Washington.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you kind of get it. That's where you get into the splitting hairs of it, right? Because if you throw those 4 teams up against the wall, whose resume is better? I think.
And by the way, the 1 loss Washington could be to Oregon in the big Pac-12 championship game.
Yeah, so
which
then
would
you've
really
got
be a mess.
Yeah, then you've got a real mess. So that's where the committee. That's where I don't envy their job when it comes to getting 4, because you do have to split hairs, which is why I wish one of them be like, look, man, we're splitting hairs here. Like when it comes down to it, we're trying to find a needle in a stack of needles. It's I don't know what to tell you that you want to hear that's going to make you feel better. We just think that X team is the best team to go up against this based on several totally arbitrary factors because everybody else is the same. And hate to break it to you guys, there's parity in college football.
Yep.
If you're not, and it's coming to the SEC too.
Yep.
It's coming.
Yep.
This is all good news, but when you see more parity, you're going to have tougher conversations.
Yep. It could be like in the end, there could be 8 or 9 teams, and it'd be great. I want chaos. I want chaos. That's what I want. I want to see them struggle to get those 4 teams.
I just want one of them to live in Tallahassee. That's all.
Yeah.
I don't care who the other 3 are. I just personally need one of them to live in Tallahassee. Number 3, has Clemson turned it back on? Has Dabo, at least in the short term, been able to fuel all the negativity into the channel where they can win regularly again? For at least until he fixes his roster issue. We all picked Clemson to win the game because it's at home. North Carolina has been really spotty, but player for player, this is kind of an evenly matched game, but I don't know. I just don't trust them to go in. And if Clemson's turned it back on, that would be really, really interesting. If they have, maybe this is what woke Dabo up and made him look at, okay, here's what we've been doing wrong. I don't know if he's that introspective, but after that game against Notre Dame last week, I'm kind of wondering, like, okay, is this what he need? Was Tyler from Spartanburg the spark that lit the match?
I think he ought to get a game ball.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, they're getting better, but they're still not great. I mean, although they could finish very strong, if you were to finish out 8-4 and have a win over North Carolina to add to the mix, then I think that would be a good little ending to what was a really bad story, at least early on. I've seen some of the speculation about A&M, like would they go after Dabo? Which is interesting, made me stop and think a little bit. But, I mean, he's got a little bit of momentum building right now. Cade Klubnik had a nice game, and it hasn't always been the case this year. So, maybe there's something a little bit, sparking back up here. It's not like they just lost all their talent. I mean, there might be areas where they're not as talented, but it's not like they lost everybody and they just suddenly were just some mundane program, out there in the Carolinas. I mean, they just needed a little bit of time to get it together, it looks like, and they have a chance to finish really strong. Number 2,
can Louisville make the ACC title game? Can they do it? Can they withstand Miami? Look, they have the one loss, and it was a dud to Pitt. Then they almost had a dud against Virginia. Miami is kind of treading water here, but the game is in Miami. Mario Cristobal would love nothing more than to throw the rest of the ACC into chaos, I'm sure, with a win this week. Tyler Van Dyke needs a good game. Like, the dude needs a good game. Whether he has it in him or not remains to be seen. But if Louisville wins, they're in the ACC title game, and that would be remarkable turnaround for Jeff Brom in year 1.
Yeah, it'd be a great finish. They are in the top 10 right now. I mean, they have a lot to play for and a lot in front of them if they can win this game, but it is a pretty big obstacle. Miami struggled over the last few weeks. Obviously Louisville had the blemish as well against Pitt, which is, you really look back on that, like what an ugly loss that was. But I think Miami's slight favorites last I looked. But this should be one heck of a game. And, Louisville can do it. I mean, I think they can do it, but can and actually doing are two different things. So, that's a big game to watch for tomorrow morning.
I'll be curious to see what happens if they do lose and North Carolina is playing for it against Clemson, how that affects that game. I'm really, really curious about that. Or if they do win, like does North Carolina, do they, knowing that, because there's no way Mac Brown's going to be able to keep that information from them.
Right.
Especially considering that Clemson, like even if he tried, as soon as they run out on the field, Clemson's going to throw that score up on the screen. So
you can't keep that. And not everyone. You look at everyone's got a phone.
Yeah.
Now I got a question about the ACC. Florida State's going to play for the championship against Louisville, maybe,
or North Carolina.
Okay. The Big Ten East champion's going to play against Iowa, right? That's not going to help them any. It's not going to help Florida State any. Are those two championship games going to in any way help those two teams, other than it's just a win?
The only thing it's going to help Florida State is being undefeated if they win it, right? And that's assuming that they beat Florida in the Swamp next week. But say they do beat Florida in the Swamp next week and then beat Louisville, then all it's going to do is like, okay, you've got a 13-0 Power 5 team here, brand name team that's sitting there. So it's not going to help them. Like, it's not going to put them from 4-1.
No,
if they do, no. I mean, it's not going to be like that. So no, I mean, FSU just has to win. It would be very easy to, take FSU out and put Texas, Oregon, or Bama in that spot. And look, if Louisville wins out, which means they would only have one loss and they would have beaten Florida State, who had given them one loss, then they have an argument as well, although their schedule probably not as strong as some of the rest of the people that would be in front of them.
Beats Florida State, neither one of them make the playoffs.
No, exactly. Yeah, that's just the excuse they need. Well, ACC, congratulations on a hard-fought season and enjoy the Orange Bowl. That's what's going to happen there. And number 1, what does the Texas offense look like without Jonathan Brooks? I think that is going to be not just for this game, but are there significant differences with Cedric Baxter in there or what they want to do with their run game than if he is in there, if Brooks was in there? How do they change that up? That's not just for this week. That's for going forward into the game against Texas Tech, into what could be the Big 12 title game, and into the playoff or the postseason, whatever that is. So I'm very curious to see if they if Baxter being in changes what they do or what they can expect from their running back position.
Yeah, I mean, it just seemed like Jonathan Brooks was in a really good groove and well on his way to having a huge stretch run. So without him, yeah, I do think that shuffles things up a little bit. It's not as much of a guarantee of kind of what you already had in place. Now that is more of a question mark, whereas it was a strong point for you. I mean, not to say those guys can't come in and, Baxter among them, play really well for you. That's certainly possible, and they've got a lot of weapons around that can take and alleviate some of that pressure off of those guys. But when it comes down to it and they need yardage, they could bank on Brooks, and now it's a little bit more of a question, like you said. So, yeah, I'm curious to see that as well. Do we find that out exactly tomorrow? I don't know, but they're going to need to – I mean, we're going to see the proof in the pudding over this stretch run, especially if they book a spot in the Big 12 title tomorrow. They're going to have, an extra game to play, and that run game's going to come into play, absolutely. So, yeah, that's a big loss for them, but how big is we'll start to see that tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Baxter, he's got like 300 or 400 yards rushing, but I've seen him also pop a couple because he's a five-star elite player, not just a five-star running back. He just hasn't had the opportunities because Brooks has been so good. I think Jatavian Sanders and the wide receivers, they'll try to open that up like they have been and see how – and Ewers can't afford an early turnover or two, obviously, like he did against a couple of teams this year. All right. Garrett Ross, thank you very much. Emery Winter, Levi Caraway, and Jack McKenzie tonight at 10:30.